Thank you, first of all, for joining us. Uh, my name is Prithviraj Thakur, and I'm here to introduce today's speaker, Luciana Pedrazzini from the University of Milan. Luciana is an associate professor of second language education and TESOL at the University of Milan. Her main research interests are in the areas of second language acquisition and pedagogy, history of language teaching, and teacher education. She has co-authored with Andrea Nava a book called Second Language Acquisition in Action, Principles from Practice, published by Bloomsbury in 2018. And along with Andrea Nava, she is the co-founder of the Italy ELT Archive at the University of Milan. And uh, she will be talking in today's lecture about this very archive, the Italy Archive, Italy ELT Archive, a resource for investigating the history of English textbooks in Italy. So on behalf of all of us here, welcome Luciana, and thank you so much. And it's over to you. Look forward to hearing you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this introduction. It's a pleasure for me to be here and to present this project, which is called the Italy ELT Archive. I would like to thank Professor Padwad for inviting me, and also Richard Smith, who introduced me to this very interesting association, HELE, and also Venela for all the contacts and preparing this talk. Today this is the main topic, the Italy ELT Archive, and I'm going to give you a short description of what the archive is about. Then just illustrate the main aims of the archive, and finally we can see how the archive can be used to investigate the history. In my particular case, we used it to investigate the history of English textbooks in Italy. Well, this is the web page of the archive, so you are free to just have a look at it while I'm presenting or after my presentation. It's an open source resource, and you can actually see there are different sections where as teachers or teacher educators you can find resources and of course information about events related to the archive group. The archive started in 2019 at the University of Milan, and of course started as a research project, which involved first of all my colleague Andrea Nava, and later Emanuela Tenca, who should be online as well. So Emanuela, whenever you want to add something, please feel free. The archive collects English language teaching and learning materials, that is basically texts, which were published in Italy in the 20th century. Okay. But it also includes other types of resources, which are related to the specific context in which these teaching and learning materials were produced. and published. Another feature of the archive is that it's both a physical and an online archive. So it can be browsed, it can be explored online as well. We decided for these two versions of the archive because many teachers can't access maybe physically our resources, so they have the chance to use these resources online, and you can do the same if you find something interesting for you. Well, let me just briefly give you some details about the way we selected these materials. As I said, we decided to select ELT materials published in Italy only, because we know that there are lots of ELT materials published in the UK, in the US, but we decided to focus on our local production. Why that? Because we are interested in understanding how these materials were produced from the Italian perspective, and taking into account our specific learning context at different levels of education: primary, secondary, vocational training, but also higher education. And we also included some materials for self-study. We started off by an initial list of more than 700 books we identified in our national bibliographic system, which were then further selected, right, for the purposes of the archive. Here you have a representation of the number of books, basically, according to the different periods. As you can see, most of the ELT materials in the archive were published from 1960 to up to 2000. The main criterion we decided to go for is representativeness. So we didn't want to have a huge sample, but, a representative sample of the ELT production in Italy. ELT material production in Italy. At the moment, well, before saying that, I should say that the archive includes free open access catalogs. So when we access the archive, you will see that you can choose between free catalogs. A book catalog, books catalog, authors catalogs, and publishers catalogs. As you can see, these catalogs are interrelated. They don't work separately, right? At the moment, in the books catalog, we have 132 books. In the authors catalog, 173 authors. So this gives you the idea of how many authors, mainly Italian authors, produce materials along this period, and 65 publishers. The catalog also allows what we define as a faceted search, in the sense that you can look for materials applying a number of filters. Of course, if you don't know the precise title of the resource you're looking for, you can just using these filters select materials that you are interested in. I will show you in a minute how this works. What did we put into these free catalogs? Well, in books, we put textbooks, grammar books, activity books as well, readers, conversation books, self-study books. Okay, these are the main types of materials, teaching materials, and we include it. As for the authors, as I mentioned, the majority are Italian authors. So for the reason we wanted to understand how they produce materials, sometimes we also have non-Italian co-authors working with Italian authors. And publishers are Italian publishers, occasionally with UK partners, because some books were also published, with, of course, UK partners. Now, I mentioned the filters you can use in order to search materials in the book's catalog. Of course, these filters were created according to specific descriptive categories. So if you look for a specific textbook, you will see that you get this information. Besides the title, of course, you get the author, the name of the author or authors, the type of author. If, for example, the author is an academic, or if it's a teacher educator, or if the author is a teacher, or if the author is a professional materials writer. You will find the author's country of origin, which most of the time is Italy, publisher, so who published this specific material, place of publication, year publication, type of material, so if it's a textbook or an activity book or a grammar book, proficiency level, where you can actually place this material according to a scale of proficiency, beginners, intermediate, or upper intermediate, or advanced. Then we also thought it was necessary to include learner's age, because, as you know, sometimes a learner's age and proficiency level doesn't really match. I mean, you may have adult learners at beginner level, or vice versa, young learners at an intermediate level. Then the teaching and learning context, that is the type of school or learning context the material is addressed to. The method or approach which is implemented in the material, and this was quite tricky, really, to decide just to label the materials according to different methods, because, as you know, sometimes textbooks implement more than just one method. Then if the this material comes with a teacher's book as well, or with supplementary materials. If it's integrated with visuals, and if it's physically available in the archive. I mean, it can be analyzed and can be actually inspected because it's physically available in our archive. But when it's not available, it means that it's available maybe in another main library in Italy, where you can actually. So here's the archive, as I said. So let's go to the books catalog. You see catalogs, books catalog there. Right. We take a moment just to appear. So you can either, as I said, type in the title here, right, of the resource you're interested in, or here are the filters I mentioned before, where you can actually carry out a more specific, focused selection of what you're looking for. Suppose you are just interested in textbooks published, I don't know, as you can see here, in a period from, I don't know, in the 90s, right? Only. You can type in here the year, and only those textbooks published or materials published in along those 10 years will be selected. Okay. But just, for the sake of time and just a bit of simplifying your task, I'm going to type in the title of a textbook. I decided to show you so you can see how it is presented in this catalog, right? Okay. Here it is, coming. Okay, so this is a textbook called Got the Message, and it's for lower secondary students. As you can see here, you have all the information about this textbook, but you also have some sample pages. You don't have the whole textbook. We digitalized. Normally, we digitalize a unit, a sample unit, or other sections, for example, the contents page, or some appendices at the end. But you will always find a sample unit, so complete unit, to give you an idea how the unit was structured. Then you have all the information about author, year of publication, 1987. So maybe just, looking at this example, you can think about the books, the ELT textbooks published in India, for example, published in the same period, more or less, and if they were more or less the same, looked the same. Yeah, this was published in Italy, Milan. This is the publisher, number of pages, proficiency level. You see beginner, elementary. A type of material course book is for adolescents, so aged between 11 and 13, young. Lower secondary school, sometimes it can be used in upper secondary school as well, especially for absolute beginners. Now, the method implemented in the book is communicative, more precisely notional functional method. The type of author, as we have here three authors, we have an academic, we have a professional materials writer, we have a teacher who is also a teacher trainer. So, we have basically a group working together, and they roll Italy. Now, for each resource, you also have a short description. So, supposing that, you read this just to give you an idea, right, without going into the textbook itself, just to give you an idea, prepare your exploration of the book, okay? So if we want, we can briefly look into this book. So basically here you have PDFs, a PDF with, just preface. And this is, the actual teaching unit, right? As you said, will give you an idea of what, how the teaching unit was structured in different parts. You probably noticed that the rubrics are in Italian, are not in English. So all the instructions for students to do the activities are all in Italian, because this is, in fact, Unit 1, Lesson 1, right? So as they are beginners, they are introduced with a bit of Italian to help them understand the instructions. Of course, this was the author's choice. Other books, for example, use English right from the beginning. So here it is, as you can see, in those years, really, textbooks included very long units. And each unit, as you can see, was divided into three lessons. So it was really lots of material. Why that? Because each lesson included lots of activities. Of course, this is typical of the communicative approach, because the idea was to engage learners with activities, communication activities, right? And also games, guessing games, you see. Here's a game here, and so on, right? Or a vocabulary bank, just to introduce, which is illustrated, to introduce the main vocabulary for the lesson or for the unit. Okay, I think this gives you an idea of the kind of sample materials you can access to. Right. So let me leave this. Actually, let me go back. Let's see if it works. Well, of course, from each material, you can also get more information about the authors. That's why I told you that the free catalogs are, connected. So if you're here looking at this material, you want to find out more about one of the authors, let's say Maria Cecilia, who was one of the authors. Here you have just a short bio about the author, which is important to understand the context in which, these textbooks was actually produced. And a little bit more about these authors, uh, especially in the 80s, but also in the 90s, they were also teacher trainers. So they really work with teachers and they use these materials with teachers in order to introduce teachers to the communicative approach. Hmm? Right. Now, I will go back to the presentation unless you have specific questions about this. I don't know. Anything you would like to ask, or maybe you
Can
can
I
wait,
can I
keep your
ask
question. Oh,
something?
yeah, sure.
On the page that showed the description of this book, there
Yeah.
were links to visuals and photos, etc.
Uh-huh.
Were they the photos and visuals from the book or something else?
No, there were, let me go back. Let's see. You mean
Yeah, the
the
visual
actual samples
on
here?
the right-hand side, just
Yeah.
above short description,
Yeah.
we have visuals. Just
Yeah.
yeah, gone
Yeah.
further down, please go.
Comic strips,
This one.
drawings,
Are these
photos.
from the book, this particular book, or
Okay, just 1 second so I can show you. Yeah, they are supposed to be. No, actually, no. Sorry, I thought, but Emanuela is online. Maybe she
probably
can tell you.
related to this?
Well,
If I
here,
may chirp in, yes, it's Emanuela.
yeah, of course,
Hi.
Emanuela. Please do.
Hi.
Emanuela Tenka, let me
Hello.
introduce you briefly.
Yeah. Hi.
Emanuela worked with
Good
us.
afternoon. Good
And
evening.
and
So,
she worked, exactly on the making of this archive.
yeah.
Hello, Manuela. Nice to
Hi.
see you.
Hello. Maybe you can see me now. Yeah. I mean, this item on the bibliographic entry where you've got visuals, it just means as this we carried out a content analysis of the box. This visual piece of information just means that this book, as regards visual elements, contains comic strips, drawings,
Okay.
and pictures. And
Mm-hmm.
what you can see now on Luciana's screens means that all those books contain
Also, yeah.
comic strips or whatever you clicked on before. Okay.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
basically, the sample pages that you've got give you an idea of what these visual items are. Because
Yeah.
our idea was that, okay, maybe there might be researchers who are interested in studying the presence of visual elements in books. So carrying out a multimodal analysis of the text box. So we offer also this kind of information. But yeah, so the examples that you can see are in the sample pages in the PDF
Yeah.
file, which you
Yeah, exactly. So the examples of visuals, for example, are in the actual sample pages. Here you have more books where visuals are used, as Manuela, thank you, Manuela, for that
problem.
point, just pointed out. Yeah, here are other books, textbooks in the catalog, where, if you are interested in, just analyzing the type of visuals in books, I don't know, in the 60s, in the 80s, or whatever. Okay, you can take a look at these books, which are
Thank you.
also very
Thank you
important.
so much.
Yeah, just for kind of sectional analysis, really, more than, a focused one. So, shall we go back to the presentation then? Unless
Yeah.
someone else would like to, Nick, or no? Right. Okay. So basically, let me, okay.
By the way, I'm sorry.
Yeah, please do. No problem.
My unmute came off when I received an email, which I'm sorry, I was kind of had my email box open at the same time, and I didn't realise that was. So I apologise if you caught anything just then. Actually, sorry, I did have a question as it happens, which so I thank you very much again. I've seen you discussing this on a previous occasion.
Yeah.
But the question I'm interested in is, have you had much traffic kind of directed to, do you know, have you had any feedback about people actually using the survey? So Emmanuel has just mentioned about the multimodal analysis and about how particularly people interested in visual elements. Have you had much feedback? Because I think it's about, how many years old is it now? Is it 2 or 3 years that it's been?
We started, we started to work on the design in 2019. So in theory, basically, we started, to work on that. Then we actually started to work practically when Emanuela in
At the end of 2023.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it took us, quite a while to collect books, select the books, and then, analyze the books, then catalog the books, as you probably can see, because it's not simply a catalog in the sense, you will find in catalogs, online catalogs, it also includes description. Yeah, you were asking about getting feedback
well, just if
from
you'd
users.
had feedback, I mean, I was thinking more. So for example, I supervise some master's students in MA and TESOL, and I just think this would be a perfect kind of resource. And especially because so many students, in my experience, they're like, oh, I want to do a survey, or I want to do kind of semi-structured interviews. But actually, I think there's so much kind of resources that already exists that was waiting to be exploited, like oral history kind of documents. And in this I mean, that's slightly separate, but in this case, you've got all that kind of material there. And again, as I was saying, and Manuela's saying about, I don't know, it would, about how, there's all this visual kind of content as well as all the kind of local regional stuff. And it just, I just wondered if that was, I mean, by the way, so far I haven't had students where it's been appropriate to do this, but I assure you I am going to drive them, when I get one, I'm going to drive them in the direction of the archive to try and, because it is available, and I think it's such a good resource. And especially for that use. And as I say, there's so many students that use, surveys, which I'm not, there's nothing wrong with surveys and semi-structured interviews, but just there's so many other options out there, and especially now with multimodal analysis being quite important. It just seems a shame almost not to have more. So anyway, sorry, my question was really just wondering about whether you'd had any feedback from students or tutors
we are
using
the catalog with our master students. We've been using it for 2 years. A paper will be out soon on this experience.
I look forward to seeing that. Right,
we'll make sure that it's shared as well. And we ask our students, master students, as you mentioned, just first at first stage to carry out just a simple survey giving them a very specific assignment. And then, at a higher level, they focus on a specific area of research and, they explore the catalog right across, according to their research interest. And also sometimes, Manuela, tell me if I'm right, we get also requests from researchers in other universities. Maybe they're interested in a particular material, or they, would like to use the archive for a specific purpose, so they ask for advice. And we have users accessing the archive from different countries in the world, are we?
Yeah, we have analytics, so we know where the users come from anywhere in the world. And I'm looking at our analytics at the moment, and I can see that there are people now, of course,
from India. Well, presumably, I mean,
we've got the number of visitors, the number of views. We know who they are, what they are looking at.
Oh, that's great.
So we've got.
Oh, can I just do you happen to know just off that what has been the most? Has anything stood out as being more kind of?
Well, now I'm just skimming the page.
Oh yeah, sorry, no worry. I was just, if you
really
knew
to go into
offhand, yeah.
Details. I mean, we really have a lot of information here in our analytics.
I'm sure.
For example, we know. Well, it seems that the entry of one of the author, Longobardi, Ernesto Cesare Longobardi, has had a lot of visitors. More than 500 visitors.
Really?
Wow, okay, that's really good.
And for example, of course, the homepage has a lot of visitors, but this Longobardi really is attracting a lot of attention. I don't know why.
We should investigate more.
Yeah. But really, we have a lot of quantitative information here. And also, if anybody would like to get in touch, and users would like to get in touch, of course, we've got a contact form where we receive direct messages, which is what Luciana was mentioning before. So
thank you. Thank you for reminding this, because if you're interested in a particular material, or you would like to ask questions about the archive, you can contact us through our form. You'll find it on the website.
There is also on the website, you can also find an email address, which we all read. And also we have a social media profile page on Blue Sky, if you would like to check it out.
Okay.
It's all on the website. It will lead you everywhere.
So moving on, okay, let me go back to the presentation mode. Moving on, then you can either, use one catalog. Anyway, if you just use one catalog, if you're interested, for example, in authors, you can, just link your search to the books catalog as well. As I said, we wanted these three catalogs to interact each other, right? Also, the history about our Italian publishers is very interesting, is really very interesting. Some of these publishers have stopped their publications, or they've been, just incorporated by big companies, big publishing companies. But some of them really are very interesting to investigate. For example, we had someone interested in, going into this history of Italian publishers, for example. Well, together with this teaching and learning materials, we are in, this is something we are trying to implement, is to add some other primary sources which are related, for example, to the history of ideas. So developed in the Italian context. For example, theoretical writings, reviews, articles, because this is very useful to provide the background to the actual learning materials. Also, we've started to upload interviews to authors or to experts. We also with photographs of the actual people in person interviewed. We would also like to upload official papers, examples of syllabuses, that is all the materials related to policy and curriculum development both at national and local level. Okay, because this also is very useful to understand, for example, to what extent a textbook sort of complied with the guidelines in national curricula. And also, these are pretty difficult to find, but we have some examples of lesson plans or accounts also used in teacher training experiences, which were shared and published, locally published, and are also very useful to understand how teachers used these materials. Okay, of course, as you probably realize, it's not easy to access these kind of materials, but we think it's very useful to understand more about the context in which Italian teaching materials were produced. So basically, the archive has these two aims, main aim. So this goes back to the actual use of the archive. On the one hand, is mainly for research, that is, investigate production and implementation of materials in the Italian context. And the second main aim is to support second language teacher education. So we are using the archive also to support master students, trainee teachers, in-service teachers as well, who, I must say, are more difficult to involve, of course, because, we tried to set up just a session or two in order to involve in-service teachers as well, who unfortunately do not know much about the history of ELT in Italy. So, we think that it would be really interesting and useful for them, just to go back to what has been done in the past. There's lots of interesting materials, lots of ideas, teaching ideas from these coming from these materials. Just briefly, I can give you an example of a small-scale study I carried out on ELT history in Italy, just to show you how I use the archive for research. And this was a paper I published a few years ago, and it was about the spread of communicative language teaching in Italy in the 80s and 90s. I was, interested in finding out how communicative language teaching was actually interpreted from our local perspective. So here are my main research questions. How were communicative principles interpreted and applied in school textbooks for Italian learners? And in particular, what were the emerging innovative features in terms of syllabus design and types of learning tasks? And which features of previous methodologies were preserved? I mean, the idea here was to see how tradition and innovation kind of interplayed when this, this communicative language teaching just, came into the Italian context. And of course, I selected textbooks which are in the archive. I decided just to select a small sample. So 10 ELT textbooks for lower and upper secondary Italian schools, published, as I said, in these 2 decades, written by Italian authors, sometimes with English native speaker author, published, of course, by Italian companies, in some cases also with UK publishers. Those are textbooks that self-claimed to be communicative, right? So basically in the blurb, you find, okay, this textbooks is communicative, implements, communicative language teaching and so on. And textbooks that appear to present new features in terms of teaching methodology. Then I carried out an analysis of, typical analysis of textbooks, which included the analysis of syllabus, communicative objectives, topics, skills, learning strategies, learning activities, lesson structure. I mean, all the main components of a textbooks, and compared how all these features were actually tackled in the textbooks I analyzed. Just to give you an idea, well, here are just 2 examples of textbooks I looked at. One published in 1882, one published in 1994. Well, if you just look at the syllabus they present, well, you can see it's really, they're different. They are completely different. In 1982, well, the idea was really to implement this communication into textbooks. It's not, just by coincidence that this book is called Communication Tasks. Also, the term tasks and not activity, for example, I think was quite new for that period, because, task-based somehow developed a little bit later. But if, in the 80s, you have, the syllabus, which is basically a list of functions, right? Find out where people live, say people's job, talk about family, typical. In the 90s, you have more complex and integrated type of syllabus. So basically, the syllabus the textbooks tries to combine grammatical, lexical functions, components in the whole syllabus. That's why we talk about multi-syllabus or integrated syllabus. So you see, this is just one, quite basic, but, difference which, just gives you an idea of, the type of choices in terms of syllabus design. Of course, there are other features, but just to give you a summary of my main findings, I labeled each finding with new and old and new, right? Just to show how these textbooks tried to move from, tradition to innovation. So basically, what I notice is that in 1980s textbooks, we definitely, as I said, have a functional communicative syllabus, mainly, right? In the 90s, textbooks become multi-integrated. So basically trying to integrate different components in the syllabus and therefore in the textbooks as well. So in a way, in the Italian, I'm talking about, of course, textbooks published in Italy in those years, there's a need to go back a little bit to the issue of teaching grammar, right? Which was not immediately obvious in a functional and communicative syllabus. Just a list of functions didn't give teachers the idea that, where grammar was, right? So textbooks published later try to integrate these components, these grammatical components. So here again, you have a combination of, also in terms of exercises, activities, what used to be the more traditional grammar exercise, right? So just to summarize there are identified 4 main features really across these 2 decades. There is certainly a variety of communication-based activities versus drills, and this, of course, was a clear sign of the new which was implemented in these textbooks. We find the PPP lesson structure, presentation, practice, production. Just consider that in textbooks up to the 70s, we only had the presentation and practice stage. Production didn't exist really. So this third P introduces a new element in the teaching sequence. But as I mentioned, there's also an explicit work on grammar as well, which in more traditional kind of textbooks was carried out through more didactic approaches. That is, through rule learning and then rule, which is applied in exercises, in actual grammar practice, in more innovative and, looking forward type of textbooks, inductive approaches were implemented in the teaching of grammar through discovery-based activities, so more engaging for learners. Do I have just 2 minutes to conclude, Amol?
Yes, please. Yes.
Yeah, just, to wrap up a bit what we said. So our experience as researchers and also teacher trainers in designing and, just setting up this resource is that archives of teaching materials and documentary resources are a valuable resource for investigating ELT history, in specific sociolinguistic and cultural contexts. So if, the archive is contextualized, culturally also speaking, provides lots of insights into the way ELT developed in that particular context. ELT archives can be physical or digital. That's a choice and may include different types of materials. We decided to include not only textbooks, but also grammar books and other types of materials. Archives can start on a small scale. I mean, you don't have to imagine huge archives. For example, the ELT archives at Warwick University is a very big and, extensive archive full of resources, very precious for research and also for teacher education. But, archives can also be on a small scale, for example, in a single school. Well, you can start your own archive in your school or in a school district or as a regional archive as well, right? Materials can be cataloged according to different criteria. We decided to be analytical, to, consider different criteria. And of course, we are using our resources for different purposes. We've carried out historical research using the archive. We use our archive for teacher education. Of course, we carry out historical research using other archives as well. Archives can be used for comparative studies of teaching practices. They can, involve teachers in doing that, for example, as they have teaching experience. And finally, we think that investigating ELT history through archives as well can help them learn from past experiences. Sometimes teachers, especially, I work with young trainee teachers and teachers, they think they have to start everything from scratch. Well, there are very interesting past experiences, ELT experiences. They can also understand successes and challenges in language teaching. Sorry about the typo. They can also understand how things have changed in terms of educational policies in their context. There are many things that they can actually discover. They can also understand how language teaching methodology have developed as our archive is, historical. They can understand, for example, what kind of textbooks were used in Italy in the 60s, and then what kind of teaching methods were mostly used in those years compared to, the present, for example. And this will help them, of course, make more informed decisions about how they teach and what they do in their teaching practices. Okay, this is all, I think. I just added just few selected references, mainly about what we've published so far in relation to the archive. If you're interested, some of them can be found online as well. If you can't, just let us know. We can make them available if you're interested. Okay, thank you very much for listening. And I'm open to questions as well, of course. Thank you again.
Yeah, while people are thinking about their questions, I just want to share some thoughts as the HELE India group is working on our own Indian digital ELT archive. We are at a very, very beginning stage, just trying to conceptualize various things, beginning to collect several items. But your presentation has given us so many useful ideas on how to structure it. And more importantly, for what all purposes it can be used. And so that we can make, we can structure the archives in such a way that it facilitates being used by so many different people for such a variety of purposes. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Amol. Thank you. I'm pleased to, we've been, we shared our experience here also, because we're interested in, in what other researchers are doing, of course.
We have Mario raising his hand and then Anusha. Mario, please.
Okay, thank you for this presentation, Luciana. Hello from Argentina, everyone.
Hello, Mario. Nice to meet you.
I have a question regarding the uploads of sections of the materials. My question is, did you think about digitalizing the whole book, for example, and uploading it? Would that been an option for you, or are copyright restrictions, for example, involved? If you can tell me a little bit about
that. We thought about, of course, digitalizing the whole book, but to tell you the truth, Mario, well, it's so effortful. Really, we couldn't manage, this, and we decided to go for just for a sample, just to give an idea. Of course, we selected these sample materials with attention in order, just not to give a biased idea of what the material is like. In terms of copyright, well, for those books which are out of print, there's no problem, of course. Because you don't need to ask for permissions. The problem is for books we're still on the market, but there are very few, I must say.
Yes.
Maybe they've changed editions, titles, authors as well. They have maybe different editions and revisions. But at the moment, we haven't had any particular problems with that.
Okay. May I ask another one short
Yeah,
question?
of course, please do.
In the case of audio materials, for example, have you or are you planning to include an excerpt, an sample excerpt from the audio
that's the
materials too?
idea. That's the idea. But, we need resources, people. Unfortunately, Manuela is just collaborating on a voluntary basis because, her of course, her contract expired, but we hope to find someone else. But yeah, that's the idea. Just, to make this, of course, collection complete.
Okay. Thank you, Luciana.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anusha, ma'am.
Thank you.
I
am now unmuted. Thank you so much for this very fascinating element. As I was going through the catalog as you were showing it to us, the same question of copyright and the limitations occurred to me. But the other aspect that I was wondering is, there is so much of richness in some of the materials that you were showing, the comic strips, for instance, the activities. And that also led me to think as a question that I assumed that you would have copyright restrictions. But in this age of AI, there are so many people who are now taking these materials, pushing it to ChatGPT or Claude or anything, and asking it to create something like this. I sorry, I couldn't read too well, but what are the copyright elements and of some of these materials, and how through the catalog would you advise users why there shouldn't be just a blind, a redo of the materials, as in how they should use it actually, as in.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for this suggestion, Anusha, because that's something we may add in terms of how to use and not misuse the catalog, of course. Yeah, all the materials we upload are original, of course, and we just deal with the original versions of these materials. When it's a second edition, for example, or a third edition, we specify that. But as you suggested, would be a good idea just to advise users more in terms of how to make use of these resources, really, both printed or visual or audio resources they can find in the catalog.
So currently it is just for teachers to be able to access and scour the materials, is it? I mean, currently they will just be able to read and look at, is it?
Yeah, students.
Students, teachers, users.
Teachers, users. Also you. If you are interested in
Yes, definitely.
you can download the material, you can look at it, or just browse the materials online and just download what you're interested in. Also, simply download a book cover if you find it interesting, but just to show. I don't know if you're a teacher or teacher trainer or academic or
teacher
but
trainer.
anyway. Okay, just show. Okay, look at this. What does suggest you in terms of method, for example? And right.
Yes, so I had a question, and I have two brief questions. Number one, again, the same question that I asked in the previous webinar. I was wondering what was the motivation of the Italian students to Learn English, particularly in the early 20th century. And number two, I saw the classification of material in the archive in the website. So, how did you classify the material? Was the classification done with the help of the textbook? Was it mentioned there, or did you classify on your own?
Okay, so the
The
first
proficiency
question.
level and all.
First question, you ask if Italian learners are motivated or were motivated to learn English, to what extent they were motivated. Did I get this question right? Yeah? Okay, English is compulsory in Italian schools, starting from the primary school. Yeah, it was started to be compulsory in 1962. 1962 in middle school, lower secondary school. Then it became compulsory in 1985 in primary school. So learners go on studying English they start in primary school, then middle school, lower secondary school, and then upper secondary school. So they carry on studying English for at least, I would say, more or less 10 years. Yeah. Then depending on the school they attend as well. So sometimes they are motivated themselves because, they're interested. Sometimes they're not. So teaching materials play, they're crucial in the sense of, engaging them in the learning process. Yeah. And as for your second question, sorry, you said?
You had classified the resources according to the
Okay.
proficiency level.
Yeah.
So how did you classify them, or were they classified by default?
Yeah. Okay. Of course, in order to classify them, we had to look into each resource. And as you imagine, it wasn't easy at all to decide, okay, this is beginner or this is, even if it was stated in the blurb, for example, in the preface. Sometimes, a textbook which is classified as for beginners, then you look into it and you say, no, it seems, maybe too challenging for beginners. So sometimes you will find that beginner and elementary is some kind of, in between, or elementary and lower intermediate, because, it wasn't easy just to label one type of material at that specific level. It was easier for other types of material. The same for grammar books, for example. It was difficult to, classify them. Sometimes, well, are they for intermediate, advanced? Some grammar books are both for intermediate and advanced, for example. Yeah, again, it took a lot of time to do that kind of preliminary analysis in order to classify these materials.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess we are now coming to the close of this session, almost running out of time. So may I ask the last question?
Of course, please do.
In the chart of the collections you showed, there were books all the way back to 1910, which means teaching and learning of English began much earlier in
Yeah.
So are you planning to collect more materials from that early period?
Yeah, we are. Well, of course, it's not easy to access these materials, but they are available in our national libraries. We have two national libraries, one in Florence and one in Rome. And there are copies of materials we would like to include. Sometimes we try to find them, online on these selling companies, but it's not easy really. Buy them, but it's not easy to find them. It's easier to find them in these libraries, national libraries. In that case, we scan pages from the actual book, then we analyze the book, the material, and then we include it in the catalog. That's why in the catalog we specified if the material is available in the archive or if it's not. It's just available, as online. I think there is a question, but I didn't have time to.
Yes, you can quickly respond to that.
The chat. Okay. There was another question coming up. Okay, thank you for the flowers. What advice, okay, would you give a team starting a small scale archive? Oh, that's interesting. What would you do differently if starting again? Yeah, well, starting a small scale archive, start small. I'll just start, with the resources you can, just collect in your school or, from friends, from colleagues, this is how we started at the very early stages in our project. Would you do differently? I don't know, probably, not in terms of the design of the archive itself. I think it works quite well. Of course, the problem now is to keep implementing the archive. And that's another challenge. If you decide to start an archive, of course, at first, all your efforts go on the design stage, right? What you need to really plan and do, then you try to actually make the archive in practical terms. But then the problem is keep implementing the archive, okay? So consider that's really a great challenge in the long run, of course. And also having a place online, a site online, every 2 years, we need to renew our, resource website, resource online, which fortunately is provided for free by the university. But if you don't have an institution which provides this for you, you need, to find a provider, and that's another technical problem. Okay. My piece of advice, Emanuela, make sure you include an IT expert. That's right, Emanuela, because we had, many technical issues, really many. Emanuela, unfortunately, had to sort them out well, and she was really great. But
we had an IT expert, our
we
colleague
did.
Martin. Yeah, and also he helped us overcome some of the problems that we had with the plugin that we integrated into WordPress. The site is on WordPress.
Yeah.
And of this plugin, this piece of software is available for free, but it needs to be tweaked to say the least,
Yeah.
to make it possibly we had our own idea of how we wanted to design the archive, but also apart from overcoming technical issues, also an IT expert with their background, they also help you see things differently and come to solutions that with our background, as we didn't have that kind of expertise, we alone, the three of us, Luciana, Andrea, and I, maybe some of the things that Martin came up with, we couldn't actually even think about them. Okay. So this is also a different way that of thinking about things, and also ways of analyzing these materials, which is different from ours. So it really enriches the project as well, besides common technical issues, which of course can be quite, challenging. Okay, if you have no idea of how to set up a digital archive, because none of us had.
Yes, this is
for
true.
decades, of course.
Yeah. We also, you remember, Emanuela, just to conclude, we started off with a very long list of categories. Then working when we came, just, actually make use of these categories technically. I mean,
Yeah.
in the sense of,
Yeah.
we had some problems because some categories overlapped. So we couldn't actually, the same problem we had, you remember, with the 3 catalogs, which
Yeah.
it was difficult to have them communicate as we wanted.
Yeah, Martin solved all those issues.
Our IT expert helped us in, making them communicate.
And also, we researched other similar projects. We took inspiration from other projects. So
digital ones,
yeah. So we hope that our own archive can be a source of inspiration for you as well. Okay.
Okay.
I think it's time to conclude and thank you, Luciana, for that wonderful and inspiring talk. Thank you so much to Emanuela also for coming in on the right time with lots of insightful comments and suggestions. And your tip has resonated so very well with all of us. So thank you from all of us, all thanks to all the participants also, and thanks from everyone here at the HELE group, HELE India group, HELE Society, University of Warwick, and all of us who made this webinar successful.